Okay, so you've seen what's already in our Wednesday business briefing already. President Buhari will be presenting 2018 or 2019 budget appropriations to the National Assembly. We're just about 18 minutes past the hour of 10. At 11 o'clock is what the scheduled time will be when the president is expected to walk into the chambers and sit down with both upper and lower house of the legislature to roll out the numbers. What do we know about the budget? Of course, it will be smaller in size. The revenue has been it's been at the Achilles heels of the administration. Government revenue agencies, as you have heard, are remitting far less. Over the last 3 years, there's a shortfall of 2.3 trillion naira in terms of revenue that's supposed to go to the government. About 50 revenue-generating agencies are yet to make remittances, and almost everybody's name is there. Yesterday, the chief budget officer, Ben Akabweze, read out a riot act, told a few government agencies, which includes the NNPC, DPR, to make good on their remittances to the government. This is one big story. So today we're following that for you, 11 o'clock, live here on Channel Television. To our viewers here at home and around the world, you'll see the budget presentation, but look out for the key assumptions, in particular, the price of oil, benchmark. The Saudi authorities yesterday read out their 2019 budget, looking at crude oil at $80 a barrel for 2019. What will be Nigeria's outlook is anybody's guess. But again, we're going to have a lot to look at over the budget, and this is what we call previewing the president's budget, which is yet to be read, based on few details that we know. Of course, oil is still Nigeria's economic underbelly, so we're focused on oil as we look into 2019 budget. Let's get this Skype conversation with Jubril Karim, who is the energy research analyst at EcoBank Nigeria. He's joining us from downtown Lagos. Jubril, good morning. And this is one day we always look out for when we're presenting a budget. It's a very great economic indicator. It tells a lot of story about where you're coming from and where you're going. Yes or no?
Good morning. Yes, it does actually. It actually tells a story of what the government focus would be for the coming years, where they want to direct, especially when it comes to capital project. Expenditure allocation in terms of capital projects really shows where the government is want to focus its attention in the coming years. And okay. I think that would be what a lot of people will be looking out for in the budget once they are released.
Yes, thank you very much. The president is making the presentation within the next hour, which is about 11 o'clock, if he keeps the time and all goes well. But again, let's look at what you just said. This government is having his hands tied behind his back because it's not getting as much revenue generated as it would want to. You just heard the story this morning from the budget office. 2.3 trillion naira was what revenue-generating agencies are not remitting yet into the coffers of the government. And again, with our oil production and oil prices misbehaving very strongly, where does this leave the administration and President Buhari with whatever he's going to say from 11 o'clock?
Well, I think one thing that this government has really done, and I think that is not so appropriate, is the fact that they try to benchmark revenue to match up with expenses. All right, rather than being realistic about the revenue projection. As regard the agencies that have not remitted revenue, if you look back at what the historical expectation from those agencies have been and what it is under this current dispensation, you'll find that it's a little bit too optimistic to start with. All right, so and that optimism is what we are seeing being carried on into crude oil as well. Currently now, with all indication of what we have with the budget, crude oil production is going to be put at 2.3 million barrels, which we think is a little bit optimistic for the coming year. Also, crude oil price is being benchmarked at $60 per barrel. As of today, we're already crossing the $58 per barrel benchmark. And where that is very concerning is that if you look in the past, Nigeria has always been very optimistic when it comes to budgeting in terms of crude oil production, always coming around 2.3 million barrels, even though our production always over about 2.1, 2.2. But one thing that has always been the stabilizing factor is that the price projection has always been way lower than what is happening in the market. So that sort of creates a balance in the sense that while we're not meeting production targets, the excesses being generated in terms of price projection is actually covering up in that space. But in this case, both the production and the price projections are quite very optimistic, and I think that's one very concerning aspect of this budget.
Yes, okay, Jubril, in the last 2 years or so budget, we saw the executive coming in a little bit lower in terms of assumptions, then it got to the National Assembly, the legislature raised the figure. Then you got to a point, the government comes in, the executive comes a bit higher level, then the National Assembly lowers it. Now, it's coming in today at about 60, unless anything else had happened overnight to make the president comes in at any figure below $60 a barrel. That was when oil was looking at about $86 a barrel, and then we're now below, well below that level. As of today, our budget assumption is based on much lower oil price as far as Brent is concerned. So what do you think the National Assembly should do?
Well, I don't think I know anyone that makes a short-term projection based on short-term price, based on short-term data. All right. So I understand that in the past few months, crude oil has traded around 86, but if we take the historical average, look at the period from 2014 till date, we'll find out that that's just not, that's a little bit too optimistic. But I think the National Assembly are going to step in again and maybe bring it down to a more realistic level. I'm right now, given the projection for crude oil price and the expectation for 2019 and 2020, looking forward at crude oil price and where we expect it to be and where the markets think crude oil price will be, I think a price below $50 would actually be more appropriate for the crude oil price. Well, that simply means that it will leave government with a lot of shortfall in terms of revenue, which simply means we have to borrow more as well. So all that needs to be balanced together as it relates to the budget. But I think the National Assembly are definitely, most definitely going to cut back on that crude oil price projection.
So if the National Assembly says, Mr. President, thank you very much, $60 a barrel is good, but again, we're looking at a very much of a longer horizon. So can we do this at 54? Maybe. I'm not sure the National Assembly will do 50. Those folks, they seem to like the whiff of money.
Well, look, I think the best way to look at it is this way. The Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which Nigeria is a member of, OPEC, recently announced a 1.2 million barrel reduction in production. And the reaction has not been fantastic. It has not been as expected. Crude oil price still trading below $60 per barrel. So now that is what is obtainable now, despite the cut announcements and despite the fact that those cuts will start getting implemented from 2019 onward. But if you look at the projection for crude production in terms of what is coming online in North America, most especially in the shale production in southern United States, you will discover that there is a lot of leeway for crude oil price to actually go below the current price. So a $54 per barrel, as much as it looks like it's below current projection of $60, it's actually still a little bit optimistic. We have to be very realistic. We are looking at around above 1 million barrels of crude oil coming online in the United States in 2019, 2020. That's a lot, and I don't think OPEC have the ammunition to actually fight that. And I don't think OPEC members who are exporting to countries that are also, countries like the United States also want to lose a lot of their market share by fighting higher crude oil production in the United States. And that means that whether OPEC like it or not, whether Nigeria likes it or not, crude oil price may actually continue this downward trend for a while. So we need to be very realistic in our budget projections. And $54, even at that, I don't still think it will cut it.
Okay, so do you think we have anything in our arsenal? I'm not talking about the football club. I don't know what club side you belong. I belong to everybody. So do you think we have something in our arsenal with the Ministry of Petroleum Resources and, of course, with the NNPC to give us something in our domestic oil industry that could be a game changer for us? Because whatever way you look at it, the budget is not going to balance for next year. I suspect that, of course, it's going to be a bit more deficit, a hole in that document where by the time we're ramping up next year, if you look at this year, we haven't really done anything much in terms of what we appropriated for 2018 in terms of capital expenditure yet. And December is over.
Well, I think if we have to do that, it's about plugging holes, all right, where the leakages are. And I think the biggest of that right now, if you ask anyone that is familiar with the crude, with the NNPC, is actually the petroleum product subsidy. That's a lot. Right? That's a lot. Estimation is that by the end of this year, by the end of this year, we're looking at 1 trillion naira being spent on subsidizing PMS alone. So that's quite significant, and we need to do something about it. And the good thing is that elections are going to be over by February. So that gives a leeway to whosoever is coming on, whether it's a new government or this current one, to actually take action because it will be early stage in the administration. The petroleum subsidy, either we increase price significantly to reduce subsidy being borne by NNPC, or we fully deregulate the market. That's on one side, and I think that would make it actually reduce significantly the expenses being incurred by NNPC in terms of subsidizing these products, which it's a lot, and a lot of people have been clamoring for it for a while.
Okay, give us a minute and speak to us about the upstream sector. Do you think we have enough investments? Do you think we'll be able to get more investment into this sector? What do you think we can do from there to shake things up a little bit and give us a bit of more headroom, reduce the headwinds that we have for this budget?
Well, I think if you look at the upstream, first of all, we have to realize that whatever action we are taking right now to actually increase production in that space is not going to come to fruition in the short term. It's going to be a long-term solution. But if we look at that space as well, there is a lot of opportunity. If you look at planned projects, planned and ongoing projects across sub-Saharan Africa, Nigeria actually is on top of the table, even above countries like Angola. So there's a lot of opportunity in that, but we have to understand that the fact that there has been a drag in terms of regulation in the industry as regards PIB that was eventually broken down into PIGB and other of its subsets is actually a very concerning thing. And those kind of legislation need to be sorted out quickly so that all pending investments into that space can actually go on. We've seen significant projects that should have actually been getting close to first oil right now that have been paid back over the past few years, not only because of regulation. Of course, there's a part of that is due to the low crude oil price, but the fact that the legislation is also not solid right now, and it's not what we can confidently model, is actually affecting investment in that space as well. So to encourage investment, to make sure there are more projects that are reaching FID and eventually kickstarting and getting close to our first oil, we need to sort that very quickly. If we don't do that before the election, immediately after the election, the new legislature need to focus their attention on that, come together with the executive and find a solution to all the areas that they cannot agree on. And for the sake of the economy, try and find a reliable solution so that we can get this investment started.
So what's the celebration on Twitter all about what we're doing in the oil and gas sector? We haven't even fixed the PIB, and it's not likely we're fixing it until this term is over. Okay, let's leave it there for today. Thank you very much for your insights and perspectives about this budget that the president will be presenting at 11 o'clock. We're just about 30 minutes away from there. We expect the Nigerian president, Buhari, to make his way into the National Assembly and present this box of documents to the National Assembly. Of course, he's going to give a bit of a speech. Then, of course, we're going to hear from the leadership of both houses. Then, of course, we're covering all of that for you. Our correspondents also on that. But that's raising the curtain, as it were, with Jubril Karim, who is the energy research analyst at EcoBank Nigeria. Let's come back to the market. The banking industry is going through a phase as we speak right now. So what's the state of the banking industry and what's the outlook on their earnings for 2018? We're wrapping up the year. Wrap it up with us. We'll come back in 2.